Our journey started 100 years ago. On the 16th of June this year, we celebrate our centenary. And one of the things that I wanted to look at today is the journey that we've been on. We, as an organisation, pioneer and establish technologies and operating environments that become a core part of the world we live in. These are not necessarily cloud-related, but I think what they symbolise is the way that technology and changes in the operating world actually embed into the lives that we lead. In 1934, we established the accounting systems, and we were the first company worldwide to have salaried workforce. We established magnetic stripe technology. We either love or hate it, depending on your views on our credit cards. And the barcode system, still in shops today. Things we might not know that IBM do. We worked with the United Nations and the World Health Organization on the tracking and infectious diseases systems, which are the systems behind the way we track pandemics and epidemics around the world. So when we have things like swine flu. And I think what's interesting is today, I'm talking to you about blue sky thinking. I'm talking to you today about some of the insights that we have on our journey, the journey we've been on for 100 years, but also the journey that we're taking from a cloud perspective. We have over 2,000 production and active clouds just in 2010. And what I'm wanting to share with you today is some of the aspirations, the future aspirations, what we see happening in the next year, maybe even the next decade. Something that I get challenged in IBM quite a lot is, well, Laura, this isn't going to happen this year. No, what we have to prepare ourselves for as leaders is where we're going. I'm Laura Colvine. I'm the Cloud Strategy Leader for the UK and Ireland. And I'm going to share with you 6 of the levers that are influencing some of the ways that we should be talking and thinking about cloud today. Talking about the changing planet, you'll have heard some of that this morning. You know it from the roles that you have and the work that each of you do within your businesses. Talking about the changing business models. Talking about the way that cloud is going to enable a shift in how we engage, not only within our enterprises, but beyond our enterprise. Talking about partnering, talking about what that actually means and how cloud is actually changing the way we partner. Talking about the environment and talking about what cloud does and doesn't do, but what it means to us as an organization from an environmental perspective. Obviously, talking about social computing and talking about technology. I will be referring you at the end to our CIO study. It's outside. I think what's interesting in this is it talks about a pioneering mandate. And I think that what you'll see as we go through here is this is about establishing a vision that creates a pioneering mandate, and cloud is at the core of that. So we know, you know, that there are elements of cloud that are not new. We know it feels new, and we know that there are many ways that we're behaving that makes it feel uncomfortably new, in fact, very disruptive. But the underpinnings of cloud have been in place and have been developed by ourselves and by many other organizations over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Those elements of the journey have brought us to a place where we can do things differently with technology. But what is interesting is where the technology is going and why it's different for us today than it was before. So the fact that we've had VM virtualization, the fact that standardization has been around for a while, we've been talking about service orientation for a while. So what's different? What's different is the speed of adoption, the speed of the access that consumers require, the nature of ubiquitous data, the nature of ubiquitous data in real time in many and multiple devices, meaning that we have to operate differently, we have to supply differently because our consumers are trying to secure services from us differently. And I think what's interesting for us from a technology perspective is the shift in focus that we're focusing very much on things like nanotechnologies, we're focusing on big data, we're focusing on workload optimization systems. The reason we focus on these things is because we know that they will be the shift patterns, the shifts that will change the discussion we're having about cloud. So it's not that cloud is new, It's and the underpinnings of cloud are new. It's how it's making us behave, how it's enabling us to engage that's different. I was challenged the other day in a presentation that I gave where somebody said at the end of it, which was slightly unfortunate, and they said, well, you didn't define what cloud was. And I said, it's actually quite deliberate. I'm not going to define what cloud is, and I'm certainly not going to define it for this audience, because I think we know what cloud is. I think what we don't know is why it's causing us the challenges that it is. And so what I want to take you through today is not an exploration of what we think cloud is, but why it's changing the businesses that we're doing. And I want to give you some examples of that. So I want to talk firstly about aspirations. Aspirations for the cloud are relatively well documented. The McKinsey report, I know it's been referred to a couple of times this morning, it documents quite well some of the shifts that we're seeing in the enterprises from a cloud perspective. We know that there was a push over the left-hand side about cost takeout. The cost takeout agenda has been the primary driver that most people talk about when they talk about cloud. They talk about changing the CapEx-OpEx model. We talk about reducing duplicative costs, reducing the duplication and the silos in our organizations. And that's true. That's absolutely true. But what we've seen, and we've seen it happen quite quickly, is the shift over towards operating insight and the role that cloud can play to enable the enterprise to have greater insight into what it does, to whom, when, and then what it means for its cost base, its value base, and its return on investment base. And increasingly, we've seen that shift the discussion around the application interface level, about what applications do I use? Do I have a stronghold on those applications? Can I federate in and out of applications? Can I move and opt in, opt out when I choose? And we see the shift towards, well, what does that mean about assurances about security and data and standards? If I opt in and opt out of providers, does that mean I get continuity of service or not? So we see the shift going across about cost takeout is the primary driver. Everyone talks about it. And then they start to move to, well, do I understand my business? Do I understand my workloads? Do I understand where I can really make the biggest impact from cloud? And then, interestingly, we've seen some organizations move over towards regeneration, growth, and even social outcome from a cloud perspective. We have a belief as an organization that drives all of the investments we make and a lot of the work that we do with clients. We believe we have a role to play in shaping and contributing to how the world works and helping it to work better. And one of the things that we've seen is, and you probably heard about some of our Smarter Planet and Smarter Cities work. I'll be referring to a bit of this later. We've seen the shift towards the social outcome and the role that cloud can play, not just in driving profit, not just in changing the cost base of the organization, but actually in changing the mission of the organization, the purpose and the contribution they make, contribution to their consumers and contribution to the footprint they have. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So you know from McKinsey's report, they say that 70% of respondents are talking about increased business flexibility being a focus area for them. They're talking about increased ability to scale up or shrink to meet business needs. And actually this lower unit cost of IT, it's still there. It will, of course, stay there. But that's shifting in focus. So I think the aspirations of the enterprise, you know them, you may or may not connect with some of those that were referred to there, are important. But one of the things that I would like to bring you to think about is thinking beyond the enterprise and thinking of the impact of cloud beyond the enterprise that you exist in today. Aspirations from the end user perspective are increasingly affecting the way that clouds are shaping and forming. And I know it's quite a complicated diagram, but you'll get the story. Over the left-hand side here is predominantly where enterprises focus at the moment, either in their commodity services, i.e. desktop collaboration, etc., or in their core services. Core services, things like back office, CRM, etc. But what we actually start to see is when they consider outside of their enterprise boundaries, and they start to consider the consumer and the ecosystem or the network that could be created with cloud, they start to consider that cloud can provide them with different opportunity. It brings them to realize how cloud can enable the channels and the devices that a consumer would use in a different way. And an example of this would be, for example, twittering ferries. The Isle of Wight ferries is, I think personally that they're very lucky to live on the Isle of Wight, and it would be a great commute. For myself, I live outside of London, so my commute is on a train. But a lot of people commute on the ferry from the Isle of Wight over to Portsmouth or Southampton. And the Isle of Wight ferries wanted to provide a cloud-provisioned environment to enhance the services to their commuter community. And what they could have done is just thought of cloud for their own enterprise needs. So changing what they did, changing how they operate, and it would have saved them money, and it would have probably delivered better services to the end consumer. They thought outside of the box. They thought into the network. They thought into the cloud as the cloud enabling and cloud being at the core of a new ecosystem that they were going to create. So twittering ferries is where they really connected with the tweeting environment and the tweeting behaviors of the commuters, and created a cloud that wasn't so much about them pushing stuff, but actually enabling the data and the information to be shared in a much more collaborative and a real-time way between their commuters. So cloud, but not cloud just for their enterprise with today's business model, but cloud done in a different way that actually connects an ecosystem in a way that they wouldn't have thought of a while ago. Another example of this, probably at a very different end of the spectrum, is healthcare. Clinical clouds and the connection of the supply chain for healthcare. So what I mean by that is between hospitals, the social care in the community, doctors, and even charities, connecting that ecosystem in a horizontal way to enable patient-centric care is something we personally as a company are doing. We're doing it in Spain, where we've got 8 hospitals, 470 doctors' environments, and a number of private care providers who are connected together behind a single cloud that provisions commodity services. Yes, it does, but it also provisions core services that they share. But most importantly, it's moved into specialist services. So data specific to the handling of health information. Very secure, needs to be treated very carefully. We've got to have absolute assurance that the right person is accessing the right information at the right time. But that concept of sharing a cloud ecosystem in a different way is a trend that we're seeing, not just for niche product areas or for niche providers, but actually through core agencies, companies, and services around the world. So moving on, the idea of actually engaging your customers as co-creators is where we're seeing some organizations go. They go beyond, not just beyond their own enterprise, not into the ecosystem as the new enterprise, the new normal for cloud, but they actually go a couple of steps further than that, and they say, well, actually, we're going to engage our community in a very different way in our business. So these co-creators actually start to work within the cloud to enhance the offering set, the product set, the service set that this collaboration of providers support. PayPal is a good example of this. We've provided, in fact, a public cloud in this instance to PayPal, where PayPal have opened up the development capability, opened up to developers so they could bring, they use the phrase, they bring the purse into the cloud. And what they actually mean is they wanted to find very innovative and creative ways to actually handle payment and commercial transaction in the cloud. They recognize the boundaries of their own organization may restrict them, so they create